Hello, welcome back to the Mobile Motorbike Mechanic channel. I'm Steve. Today we're off to a local little job actually in Warwickshire, in the countryside. We're just going off to do a GSXR 600 for a lady. She's recently bought the bike, and it came with a different top yoke and a pair of motocross handlebars, and she wants those removing, or they've been removed, but for some reason the throttle cables and the clutch cable are still the longer versions. So we're just going to get those replaced for her, and also we're going to do some front indicators as well, change those up. So we'll see you when we get there. Right, so here we are with the GSXR 600 K4. So as I said, this the lady who's bought this bike, it did have a set of it did have a different top yoke and a set of motocross handlebars fitted. So they've been removed by the seller and put back to a standard yoke on the front of this. But they've left the longer throttle cables on, which now on full lock, you see they clash with fairing. So we're just going to swap those back to standard length cables, and also the clutch cable on this is really heavy, and it's also, if you come around this side, you can see the clutch cable is poking out the side of the fairing because it's much too long. So we'll refit a standard clutch cable on this one. Also on the front of this, we've got some horrendous, nasty indicators. So the customer just wants the stock indicators put back on this. So we'll get on with that now. Alright, so we'll start off by removing the seat unit. We've got to get the seat off, we've got to get the tank up, and you can see the throttle cables are just here. So they're quite easy to access on the old GSXRs, which is good because they're on the end of the carbs rather than in the middle of the carbs. So we'll get into those. Let me just get a cloth to put on the floor. Right, let's get this seat off. The good thing about GSXRs is that after the S-Ram model, they all came with a hinge on the back of the, when the S-Ram was introduced, they came with a hinge on the back of the tank. If you want to do any work under the tank, as long as you pop the seat off and take those two bolts out, get yourself a little prop, and in she goes. Right, so if you have a look in here, you can see the throttle cables. So we've got obviously the pull and the push throttle cables. So what we'll do, it looks like somebody gone wild with some zip ties here. We'll get all those cut out. We'll get these throttle cables removed. We'll get the standard ones put back in. I think somebody's used this to actually say this is wiring for a throttle positioning, for a gear indicator. I think that's what they've used it for. All these zip ties. Oh, let's get into it. Let's find out what's going on here. What we're going to do, I'm just going to remove that bracket there to release these cables. So we're just going to loosen these cables off. And what we can do is unhook them from the throttle quadrant there. There we go, that's one undone. I'm just going to unhook it from the throttle quadrant. That's that one done. And we'll do the same again here. When doing throttle cables, a lot of people, if you snap the throttle cable, a lot of people start by putting the cables on here and then run them up to the throttle to the twist grip. And it's exactly the opposite. You've got to start at the twist grip and work your way down to the throttles. So let's just get this one out. Actually, these are one of the easier ones to do because they're on the end. Oh, I've cut myself. There we go. Pick tool. Get down around the back of that one. Oh, where are you? It's gone too far. There we go. Pop straight out. So, throttle's off. So what we're going to need to do is remove this Allen bolt here, and underneath here there should be a couple of screws. There's one. Again, decent fitting screwdriver. Don't get two in the heads up on the screws. That's the one out. On this occasion, both those screws are the same size. Sometimes you'll find one's longer than the other. Quite a lot of the time, actually, you'll find one's longer than the other. So just remember where they go. So 3mm Allen key on that one by the look of it. Let's get that Allen bolt out of there. That's just the retainer plate that holds the cables in. There's one. There's two. And that's it. Throttle cables, I'll go. Right, so these are the original stock cables. We're going to go put these back in again. It's a bit of a mix of things going on. First things first, we need to fit the cables into the shell. So, one cable goes in, the other cable goes in, and they're both held in with that little plate, that small Allen bolt. Okay, so that's our first job. Now what we'll do is we'll route the cables in to the bike. There we go. And now what we can do is fit the twist grip. So, that cable goes there. And that one goes the other side. It's falling out of the twist grip mechanism. Okay. Right. Now, somewhere on that clip-on, it's going to be a hole. The reason you need to find it is because if you look in there, You can see there's a little dimple. That dimple needs to go into the hole. Ah, it's there. I can feel it with my finger. So when it goes in, it will go with a bit of a click. This is strange because it should just go clunk and find the hole, as it were. Just going to take that cylinder completely off. Give us a bit more room to work on the clip on. There it is. It's just going to click into there. So it can't rotate and it can't go forward or backward. That's what you're after. I just don't like the way that's all sitting on there. It just doesn't look very pretty at the minute, but that's where it wants to go, so that's where it's going to go. Right, let's get the screws back in. Okay, done. So that's your switch gear on. Done. So we'll just get this master cylinder lined up. So before we go any further, now we've got those cables fitted, I'm just going to check to make sure there's nothing hanging up on the throttle. You can see the cables are moving nice and freely in and out. Okay, and we're also going to reset the kill switch. So that's caught me out a few times in the past. So if you're ever messing around with switch gear and things, just make sure the kill switch is set back to run. Okay, so we're now ready to put the cables on back onto the throttle bodies. So what we want to do is we want to find which cable is the pull cable. So just as we're using the throttle there, just pull the twist grip back. See, this is our pull cable. So if we go down onto the throttle quadrant itself, that's the pull. So it's pulling in that direction. So that's going to be the pull side. So that's going to be the second cable we fit. So we're going to start off with the bottom cable here. Now these are either really easy, or they take you half an hour to fit on. Probably won't be able to see what I'm doing because my fingers are in the way. We're just fitting the cable onto the quadrant. Plug that in. Simple as that. So just guide it in, pop it in the retainer there. Just start winding it on, just so it doesn't fall out. Okay, because we get to set the throttles up. So what we're going to do is we're just going to check. Yep, that's still our throttle actuator. So we've put the cables on the right way around. So again, just going to feed this in into the hole. There she goes. Line the cable up with the cutout. Easy as that. You can see that throttle cable is not going to reach because we need that bit of metal in between these two bolts. Yeah, it's not going to reach without pulling the throttle open. So it means we've got this bottom cable too short. Just need to spin that one off. Oops. Spin it down. Just getting that. Spin that a bit fast. So there we go. Right, so let's just check the throttle action. Ooh, so the throttle's working, but it's not snapping back. So what we'll do, we'll just do a couple of adjustments on these throttle cables to make sure that that's going to properly snap back. So we've done a little bit of an adjustment on the throttle cables, and now they're nicely returning. Now what we want to do is we want to take out a bit of that play. So all we need to do is tighten that cable up there. You see, and that's your play in your throttle. So we'll just wind that nut down, and that should be it. He says. Simple as that. There you go, no more play. What we need to do before we finish off though, now we know where that one wants to go, we've got to get that one out of the way and tighten up the bottom one. One final check. There we go. The throttle is returning fully to the stop, and we've got very little play. Quite a little bit of free play, but we're all good there. So the only thing left to do is refit our little bracket. Right. That's the throttle cables done. As you can see now, on full lock, they don't clash with the dashboard anymore. So they're not hitting up here. So they're all good. So we'll crack on with the clutch cable next. So new clutch cable, got to fit it in, just like that. Up to the clutch. Need to get this cover off. To get this cover off, we need to take the fairing off, and we need to remove the gear shift here. So because these are aftermarket rear sets, there's normally enough slack in the mechanism here to take that off, but because these are aftermarket rear sets, we can't take that off. So what we'll do is we'll take the whole rear set off, take the whole thing off in one go. I've also noticed, just whilst looking at this, you see that this gear shift's all loose, so nothing's tight on it, and this is loose as well. So what we'll do is we'll tighten out all of the components up on this one for the customer. Don't want them to have a bad experience, and I don't want to get blamed for leaving it in that condition. So as you can see, yeah, the actual peg itself's loose, so we'll tighten that up, and yeah, the shifter rod, like I said, none of it's tight, so we'll tighten all that up when we get it back on the bike. Okay, fair enough. 4mm. It's always 4mm. It's a Suzuki. We'll leave that one in place just to hold the fairing whilst we take everything else apart. Okay, so we've got a number of clips that we need to undo on the inside of this as well, and on the underside of it. So we've just got one bolt holding the fairing panel on, but if you come around here and have a look at the front, you'll see there's a couple of plastic clips. There's one there, there's one there. I think that's only the two on that side, and then there's a series that run directly underneath the bike. So we've got some clip removal tools. So let's get into that. This can be either really straightforward or really difficult to do. Luckily for me, I was here on my own a week or so ago doing a service on this bike. I managed to get all of these out, so I know they come out. It's just a question of whether or not we can get to them today. There we go. That's those two. And now we've got the ones underneath the bike to do. That should be all of those clips out. So we've just got that one last bolt. Squeaky, squeaky, squeak. And that fairing panel should... Oh yeah, there's a little retaining clip on here, which you just pull out. And then it should just remove itself. There we go, just like that. Now we can see this incredibly long and baggy clutch cable. So we need to take this cover off. So we'll start off removing the speedo sensor, and then it's just a number of bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 I think, around the outside. So speedo sensor's gone. Just tuck that up out of the way. And then a couple of 8mm bolts and we'll get that cover off. These are probably going to be long and short bolts. There we go, you see. So good idea is to lay them out as they come out of the cover, so then you get the right length in the right hole. Long, short one in the top there. There we go. I'm just going to get some gloves, because under there's the chain and under there's going to be greasy and horrible. And there we have it. And as predicted, it's greasy and horrible. So this is your clutch mechanism. That's your clutch release arm. This is your clutch cable in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to strip that cable out and fit the new one on it. Ugh. Gobs of it. It's horrible. Look at that stain in it. It's not the worst I've seen by a long way, but whilst we're here, we may as well clean it up. And what you can actually see here is this little shaft. So this little shaft is what pushes through the engine and actually activates the clutch on the other side of the engine. So working off this cammed gear here, pushes on that, and that's what pushes on the clutch on the other side of the engine. So if we take that out, as long as we're quick, we take that out. Sometimes if you do this with the bike on a side stand, you'll actually get engine oil out of that seal. So you've got to be quick, but you can see the state of that. If that's pushing into the engine, pushing into that seal, that's going to make your clutch very, very heavy. So we'll give that a clean, get that sorted out. Yeah, you can see it's just all dried up chain wax and road filth. There's actually an O-ring in there from a previous chain as well. I don't know what's going to go on there. Interesting. Motorcycle archaeology. That's what that is. Right. Let's get some brake cleaner and whiz some brake cleaner around in there and get that cleaned up. There we go, looking a little bit cleaner. So that can go back in its hole. So back to the clutch cable itself. You just need to release the clutch cable from the clutch cover, which is just 12mm. There we go, that's that done. And we just need to get this out of the case, out of the cover here. Now this is bound to be, these sometimes snap or seize and then snap off. So as you're winding them out, if you do a turn and then back on itself just to clear the threads, because you can see all the filth in there. It's absolutely disgusting. But all we want to do is just want to wind this one out. We're running out of adjustment on here. So we're just going to release the clutch cable from the top end. So to do that, you've got an adjuster here. Sometimes these are in two parts. This one's actually in one part. And all we're going to do is we're going to just turn that around until you see there's a line, there's a split actually in the clutch perch here. And all you want to do is you want to line up that split with the hole so it all lines up. And then you just want to pull the clutch cable out, and then you can see it just comes out. And you just release it from the lever itself. Simple as that. So that's now giving us a load more cable to play with down the bottom end here. Right. So within this clutch release mechanism, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny in there, there's a little tang of metal that's been folded over, and that fold holds this cable in place. So we just got to bend him up to get the clutch cable out. So we're going to need a pick just to bend that tang out the way. Where's he going to go? Here's the question. He's bending me pick. Oh, come on, you bugger. Nearly there. There you go. So that tang now is, I don't know if you can see it because it's so dirty, but that tang now is out of the way, which means we can just release the cable. And that's it. So we've just got to thread this cable out of the frame, follow it up. Oh, it's cable tied to all sorts of stuff up here. Let's see what we've got up here. It looks like somebody's gone mad with cable ties up here. Get that one gone. Get that one gone. I think what they've done is they've just used a load of cable ties to try and get rid of the excess length. So that's that clutch cable out. Ah, and if you look there, you see it's split and rusty. That's probably where the clutch cable is starting to, yeah, he's very stiff on the actuation. So it's exactly opposite to the throttle cable that we replaced. So this time we're going to start at the end and work our way back towards the handlebar. On the throttle cable, if you remember, we started at that end and then worked down towards the carbs. Aluminium part, steel part. So we've got two non-similar metals. So the very first thing I'm going to do, a little bit of copper coat or anti-seize. And we're just going to pop a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, because whenever you've got two dissimilar metals, you'll get this wonderful situation called galvanic reaction. And I'm probably going to be the poor bugger who's going to have to fix this when it goes wrong next. So a little bit of preventative maintenance. Where's the old cable? There's the old cable. Yeah, you can't really see it, but you can see there's a bit of furring and what have you on that old cable from where it's reacted to the aluminium on the case. So like I say, a bit of preventative maintenance, always worthwhile. So now we'll fit the cable, and for the sake of 2 seconds with a bit of copper slip, it's going to save you an awful lot of hassle in the long run. Don't know if you saw our recent Bandit video where we had the clutch cable on that one snap. Well, that was the clutch actuator actually, but there was also inside here the clutch adjuster had snapped off for this exact reason. So if you want to see that video, click up here. We'll leave a banner up here. Right, so there we go. That's all operating nice and smoothly now, which is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to wind that all the way in and fit our little cable inside our little bracket there. And we're just going to knock that tang over to secure the cable in place. Just like that. So now the cable can't fall out. So when we come to fit this cover back on again, the hole in the middle of the clutch actuator needs to go onto the clutch actuator rod, and then obviously the 4 holes there, and this hole here needs to line up with the gear shift. So what we're going to do, just line it all up, boom, boom, boom. It should go on with a nice positive click like that. So you can't turn it either way, it's not going to rock and roll. Okay, get a couple of bolts and start threading them in. Now, if this has gone on correctly, you won't have an issue. If this has gone on incorrectly and you suddenly start torquing these bolts down, massive loads. I don't know if you just noticed that, I just shifted then. But if you start putting massive loads on this case, you will snap it. So just go steady. You know, I'm not using any power tools, I'm not even using my ratchet yet, I'm just using the power of my hand. And all I want to do is I just want to gently go off each corner. That feels good. Because like I say, if you really start torquing these things down, you will snap this case. So you just want to go very gentle, make sure it's all nicely seated. There we go. And he's all good. Sorted. Right, get the speedo sensor back in. There was the bolt for that one. There it is. There we go. Right, so we've finished down the bottom end here. Pop our copper slip away. And what we'll do is we'll route this cable back up through the frame. So we've routed our cable up through the frame and we're now back at the lever. So what we want to do is we want to pop the cable end into the lever, like so, and then we just stretch it round, and that adjuster's too far out. Let's just wind that adjuster in a minute. There you go, everything's lined up there, and we're on. That's it. Now, what I was saying about mounting this cover correctly before, you're going to put an awful lot of stress through there when you grab this clutch. So very first time you do it, you just want to feel, make sure there's nothing horrible. Yeah, that feels like it's going to work. That's feeling good. And then we've got quite a lot of adjustment here that we need to take up. So that's all just free play in the cable. So what we want to do is we want to adjust it at the bottom end here, because this is the easy adjust at the top. So if we adjust at the bottom end, once you've got the fairing back on and the rear set back on and everything back on, you're probably not going to get to this all that easily. So this is the end where we're going to adjust. Now if I start turning that out, you'll see that this gap here starts to close up. And what we want is we want a couple of mil. We don't want, well, we've got about 10 mil there at the minute. Yeah. So we just want a couple of mil there. So if I hold that out and start turning this in, you see it starting to move in? Starting to move in. So that's all we want. It's a couple of mil. Now again, first application, just make sure we're not breaking anything. If it comes up to a hard stop, don't just, because you don't want to break anything. That's feeling pretty good. So again, we need to take more out of that. More adjustment. You take quite a bit actually. Right, let's have a look, see how that's looking. Ah, now, there we go. We've only got a couple of mil there now. So that's slack, that's free play. And then we're onto clutch movement. It's gone back again. So a little bit more. Again, you just want to creep up on it. You don't want to go mad. Slow and steady. There you go, a little bit of play. Clutch is feeling nice now. Right. And what we're going to do is we'll leave it at that. There you go. So there's no play there now at all. All right. That might not suit our customer. They might want a little bit of play. So I'm just going to wind that back a couple of turns. There you go. Got a little bit of play back in there now. All right. So you know all of this linkage is completely disengaged. So nothing's rubbing on anything. So we've definitely got a little bit of free play there. If they want to dial that free play out, they can do so up here. We've got our final setting, so all we need to do is wind that lock nut down, hold the adjuster, and we're not going to go mad, we're just going to nip it. That's it, just so that doesn't move. Check your free play. Yep, you still got free play there. That's it, clutch cable done. So one final check. Yep, that clutch is all nice and smooth. So what we need to do is we need to drop the bike into gear and just make sure that the clutch is actuating as it should. So we just need to refit this aftermarket rear set. These don't look even like the right bolts for this. No, these aren't the right bolts. One thing I've just noticed about these rear sets is if you come in and have a look at this, we've got a recess on the rear set. Now these are the bolts that were fitted on the bike when I came to it, but they're the wrong bolts. And what we should have is, I don't know if you can see that, difference between a dome head and a cap head. So this dome head bolt is only resting on the very, very outside of this recess, whereas the cap head, which should be fitted, when you fit it, see it goes right in, like these ones. It goes right in and properly fits the rear set to the bike. So the customer doesn't know this, but I'm changing these bolts. And I'm going to do the two on the other side as well for the gear shift rear set, because they're exactly the same. So yeah, they are definitely 100% the wrong bolts. So we'll refit. Now these bolts that are going in, they're not just cap head, but they're also high tensile cap heads. So they're well up for the job. I'm taking them back out again because I need to put some anti-seize on. What I think someone's done there is they've got a set of rear sets. So these rear sets, and these are the original bolts that held the original rear sets onto the bike, and they've not fitted the correct bolts. So we will fit the correct bolts, because I couldn't live with myself if they came loose or came apart. And looking at the rest of this linkage that's all loose and falling around, it gives me concerns. So there we go. It's always better to have the right bolts in place. And we'll get another couple out and we'll put around to the other side. So this one's all done, the GSXR 600. So we've replaced the throttle cables, and that throttle's working exactly as it should be. We've done the clutch cable, which is great. Unfortunately, we can't do the front indicators on this one because my mistake, I cocked up, I've ordered the wrong parts. So we'll have to come back and do those at a later date. But everything else on this one's done. So remember to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.